Good morning, Amani. How are you? I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Today is a continuation of the poetry unit, and we're really going to focus on metaphors and similes, a form of figurative language. Now, the objective really is to explain the difference between metaphors and similes and explain the literal meanings of similes and metaphors. So, when they do their job, what exactly are they saying? I think we tend to think we have a handle on similes, the use of like or as to make a comparison between two generally unlike things, dissimilar, unlike things, using like or as to make that comparison. I think we all kind of have that handle. Um, Metaphors are a little trickier and I think harder to get. We'll talk about that a little as we move along. Um, so let's just start out by asking the question, why do writers even bother with similes and metaphors? Why can't they just write? Well, writers use similes and metaphors because they're grasping for ways to paint a mental picture on the page. So when you read something, okay, you can understand what they're really trying to get at. Sometimes they need something to reference. So like or as is a tool, or replacing one thing with another thing with a metaphor is a tool. It's really just a way for a writer to try to put a solid picture into your mind, perhaps related to a feeling that's just so hard to describe. So writers use similes and metaphors just to create a more creative, picturesque vision of what they're writing about for that reader. Now, I'm going to just take you through the worksheet that should be in front of you. So, the poems that need to be read this week: A Simile Like Love, A Metaphor Is Love by Alan Stebble. We're going to go through that poem together during this lesson. What is the Sun by Wes McGee. Love That Boy by Walter Dean Myers, who's probably better known as a novelist than he is a poet. And then When Great Trees Fall by the wonderful Maya Angelou. Now, the Maya Angelou poem we're not going to uh, talk about today because I think it needs its own little instructional video because it's such a wonderful poem. The language is so precise. And so, Wednesday being Vocabulary Day, I think we'll do that on Wednesday. We'll take a look at that poem. So, a little bonus video uh, on Wednesday for that poem. It also speaks to kind of what's going on in our world today. So, I think it deserves its own lesson. So, let's start out with metaphors. So, metaphors in modern Greek, I'm reading, so you should read along. In modern Greek, metaphor literally means movers, the people who hoist and move large pieces of furniture and boxes marked in vain, meaning people don't listen, proscia or fragile, and anomeros, this side up. You probably knew this already because Mr. Bambar probably taught you the Latin. No? You sure? Anyhow, I used to be a mover, so it's interesting to me to actually move something to somewhere else. Okay, the metaphor to move something. So in this case, we're talking about moving a mental image or a mental picture from one thing to another. Hmm. To the ancient Greeks, metaphero meant I carry from one place to another. So it makes perfect sense for us to think about what a metaphor is by literally picturing moving or transferring from one place or one word to another. So in a statement like, my love is a thorny red rose, we're moving our mental picture of love, however you picture it. We all have different pictures of love, into a thorny red rose, which we can also picture. Beautiful. I think most of us love roses, but a little bit dangerous. The thorns. That's pretty accurate. Picture of my love. Beautiful, full of thorns, just as Miss Montuma, Miss Towns. Anyway, lots of women. So anyhow, in practice, we differentiate between metaphor and simile by the use of like or as, and explicitly, coming right out, drawing a similarity. My love is like a thorny red rose. Okay, I'm giving it to you. This is what it's like. Whereas a metaphor only strongly implies or suggests that my love is a thorny red rose. It's taking this picture, it's telling you what it is, and then you've got to do the rest of the work. I think it's sometimes thought in writing classes that metaphor is somehow superior to similes because there's more of an immediate jolt or a picture of a replacement, and that similes are somehow dull or lacking in imagination. I've thought this for a long time, but I'm close to changing my mind the more I study it and look at it. Not convinced yet, but I'm getting there. I think that a metaphor as striking a harmony between two dissimilar things, unlike things. A single pure note where one thing is replaced by another. This is metaphor we're talking about. One thing replaces another. Whereas a simile sets up instead an interesting energy between two things that continue to vibrate between them. Remember, because we're putting two pictures in our mind when we're using a simile, using like or as, but we're talking about two different pictures. Or to put it visually, it's as if the simile sets up two pictures before our eyes that we continually go back and forth between them, noting similarities and differences. It seems to be more active for the reader, whereas in the metaphor, the image of the metaphor almost replaces the original one and done. I was thinking about music videos in that way as metaphors, actually, because prior to there being lots of music videos, I was born back then, I'd hear a song or, I was someplace when I heard a song, or I was feeling a certain way when I heard a song. And that's the picture that was in my mind. Music videos came along and they put those images in front of us. So whenever now we hear a song, if we're watching the video, they kind of give us the images. We don't have our own. Okay, you're not going to be like, I remember where I was when I watched that video. Okay, they all seem to blend into each other. So, so much for music videos. Anyhow, with that in mind, we're going to read the following poem twice because we should read all poetry twice. And you'll be asked to write about it and the other assigned readings um, extensively on Thursday. You'll be doing another braces because that's what we do. We write. And there'll be some work on the poems today. There are similes and metaphors in the poem we're about to read. So usually a poet might just employ one of these. This poem specifically tackles both of these in separate stanzas, as you will see. Think about what form of figurative language you like best. Okay? Which one do you like more? Which is harder to write or understand? It's been metaphor for me, but let's see what you think. Ask yourself, why is it harder? And simply enjoy.